in October.
I'll go next. Hello. My name is Desmond Stowe, and I'm currently the Director of Student Life at Savannah State University, where I'm in charge of student activities, Greek life, fraternity life, inclusion, diversity and inclusion, the student union, SGA, campus activities board, and a host of other things. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been in the field for about 16 years. I'm a graduate of North Carolina A&T, where I first started my career, and also worked at Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, and now I'm here at Savannah State University. So that's who I am.
Well, great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Orlando Mitchell. I serve as the Director of New Student Orientation and Transition Programs at Winston-Salem State University. And as of August 1st, Ziggy reminded me today, as of August the 1st, I've been in student affairs a total of 22 years. I know I don't look it, but I have been for 22 years. I've been at Winston-Salem State now for 12 years.
Awesome. And so over the years, I've had the pleasure to connect with these four individuals, and today is kind of like a full circle moment for me. So stepping back to my undergraduate experience at Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, I attended Lincoln University of Pennsylvania 2003 to 2007, and Isan and Desmond were my advisors when I was a student at Lincoln University. And so I've took so much from them that they've poured into me over the years, and I use that today in the field. And they are two of the reasons, along with Ms. Royal, are two of the reasons why I chose, as well as Dr. Walton, I chose student affairs as a field to go into as a career option, not knowing as a student that this was something that I would go into as a field, as a career field. But just my experience as a student leader really propelled me into this career field. And I'm like so happy that I even decided and chose to walk in their path in higher education as an up and coming student affairs professional, taking, I guess, a higher rank in the field, right? And then we have Gael, who I had the pleasure of meeting at Howard University in student activities, and me and Gael worked together for 3 years at Howard University together. And she was just a breath of fresh air when she came to Howard, and just took like a weight of load off of me. And she's just so skilled. I'm just excited to see where she's going to go in the field. She has a wealth of knowledge that she brought to the field, brought to Howard University, and she has definitely left her mark there at the institution as well. So for tonight's topic, oftentimes as student affairs professionals, specifically at an HBCU, we have minimal resources, a strong demand for engagement, development, and to provide outcomes based off of the work that we've done. We are told to be innovative with or without a budget, and we struggle finding self-care for ourselves, among a plethora of other things as well. But then on the flip side of that, we encourage our students, and we oftentimes find that our students become our extended families while they're in school, and then even post-graduation, we're still connected to our students from years to come, as we can see today. And I'm still connected to Isan and to Desmond as well. And then we have Orlando Mitchell. Orlando is one of my mentors in the field, and he encourages me and pushes me and motivates me to do so many things, and really just encourages me, and that's one of my reasons why I'm still in the field today. And so we're going to impart some knowledge to our viewers today, for those who may be looking at joining the field, and for those who may be in the field who just may need some tips to help get them along the way or get them to that next level. So we're going to start off, and our first question for the evening is, what is one thing that you love about student affairs, being a student affairs professional today, and why?
All right, I'll go. It keeps me young, I'll say. I won't say that I know all of the new songs or all of the new language and terminology, because there are terms that they use that I absolutely can't stand because they're overused. However, being around young people keeps me young. I am excited, and whether any of you agree or not, I am excited that other people, I passed for a younger age than I actually am. And I know that I can attribute that to working with students for the past 18 years. So that's one of the things I love. Sorry if that was a selfish thing, but I like being young. So that's one of the things I love.
Okay.
I would say, so the most important thing is students in the word student affairs, right? And so I think the possibilities of every time you interact with a student, it's different. So you never know what is going to be when you interact with a student. That's the part that I love about student affairs. It's truly the student, and that's in the good, that's in the bad. Like, students are going to have good days and you're going to be there to cheer them on. Students are going to have bad days and you're going to be there to encourage them or to give them that, you know, that wisdom to know that we've all been through, you know, you're human. We've all been through stuff before. So I think the totality of being with the student and being able to engage in the student throughout the entire day is kind of one thing that I like about it, because as much as they may come into your office or email you or call you or whatever, or contact you, with this current COVID situation, like without the students, I'm like, oh my gosh, can I just please have interaction with student? Like, it's so hard. Everything we're taught as a student affairs professional is about engaging and creating community and making it a place, you know, that's comfortable for students to thrive. All of that is very difficult virtually. But so the thing that I like is having that contact with the student, because you never know what that contact can be, and you can always make it kind of a teachable moment, whether it's good or bad for a student.
Right.
I think for me, real short, sweet, and simple is developing students. Just developing their minds, especially in an HBCU, because they belong to us. They are, you know, they're a part of us. So the more that I can develop and pour into them so that when they leave, they can pour into somebody else, that's the satisfaction I get out of working in student affairs.
And for me, I loved my college experience. It was some of the best years of my life. Not necessarily the time I spent in the classroom, but the things I did outside of that. So the time in my organizations, the time in my student worker position, and in my job as a student affairs professional, I get to do all those things, but at work. Of course, all the things that everyone else said about relationships with students, but I also feel like I'm going to work with my family. Like, there's the auntie over here and the cousin over here in this office. So when you talked about extended family, Dr. T, I feel like I'm going to work with a bunch of cousins and aunties. So that's also really beneficial to me.
Right, that's very true. That's very true, because working at HBCU, I think it's very family oriented, and the culture that's behind it just resonates with us as a people. So I think that's very much ingrained in the HBCU experience. So for you guys, who inspires you to work in higher education and student affairs?
So for me, it was my Vice President of Student Affairs, Dr. Michelle Rutherford. I was her work study student my freshman year at Livingstone, all the way up till I graduated. But she was my mentor. She was my boss. She was my mentor. And she is the reason why I ended up at Winston-Salem State, because she was in that role at Winston-Salem State. And she was like, I know what you do and I need you to come on. So that she was the one that showed me what it truly meant to be student-centered. And I pattern what I do and how I move and how I motivate and how I mentor by the example that she left for me.
Okay.
Mine is similar to both of you and Dr. Morgan. It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing. If it was good for me at A&T, then I felt like I needed to embody the same thing. And so it was those people who were in student affairs. So that's Dean Ralph Brown. He was always with the students for the students. So when you talk about student-centered, no matter what it was, I always saw him on campus. Like, the power went out and I was like, there's Dean Brown. He's trying to give us electricity. He's trying to give us water and like, hey, babies, y'all need food. And hey, I'm like, Dean Brown, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing here? And he has a family, and but he was always there with us. Also, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raphael Wilson. After graduation, she kind of just like pulled me to the side, and we were on stage, walking across the stage, she was the vice president, and it was a hug. Like, that's the kind of family atmosphere it was. So it was, she's shaking people's hands, but I know the vice chancellor, so it's a hug. And after that, it's the embrace of what are you doing after graduation, and are you going to school, or do you have a job in your career? And it was kind of that molding that helped me. So those three people, I would include my first supervisor, Dr. Judah Rashid. So between Dean Brown, Dr. Judah Rashid, and Roselle Wilson are the people who kind of molded me into going into the field.
Wow.
I wasn't looking for student affairs. So I guess, I don't know if maybe my story is a little different than other people's, but I wasn't inspired to come into student affairs. As a senior in college, I also went to Lincoln. I forgot to say that at the beginning. I'm also a graduate of the Lincoln University.
Right.
But as a senior in college, my major was English communications. And so my plan was to go into the communications field and be somewhere behind somebody's TV screen. But God had other plans for me, and I didn't know that then. But that aspect didn't work out. And I knew that I wanted to be, I loved my Lincoln experience. So I just wanted to be at Lincoln. It wasn't, I want to go do this job, I want to be in this office. It wasn't any of that. It was just, I want to be at Lincoln. I didn't care what the job was. So my first job at Lincoln, the students referred to me as the work study lady. I was in federal work study in the Office of Financial Aid. But I had such a good experience as an undergrad that once I got into the field, it was, this is where I was supposed to be. And one of the people who had worked with me as a student was Veronica Cohen. And she worked at Lincoln University, and she had several titles at Lincoln. But the one that she had when I was a student was the executive director of campus life. So she was over everybody who was over campus life, student activities or whatever. When I ran for Miss Lincoln, she was the one who was responsible for the pageant. And she was always such a professional and poised about the business, gracious kind of person. For me, when I look back to think about who I would like to emulate, and why or how I like to impact my students is because of her. So it wasn't from being a student. My experience was good as a student. So once I got into student affairs, I could say, this is a person that helped shape and mold the person that I am. And this is why I want to give to my students. Sorry, that was long.
No, it was good.
I think for me, I was inspired by my student worker supervisor. Her name was Kia Beckett. And I went to Temple University, actually, for my undergraduate. And she was my supervisor in the Office of Orientation. That was my first higher ed job. And when I arrived at Temple for orientation, I saw the orientation leaders doing a performance for the new students. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But I wasn't sure exactly that it would be student affairs. Mm-hmm. Until during my master's program, I went to NASPA. And at NASPA, I went to the African American Women's Summit, filled with HBCU women deans, vice presidents, all sorts of upper level administrators who spent the day pouring into me. I left that summit with 25 business cards from associate deans, and VPs, all Black women, and I left inspired. And so I decided I was going to go into this field.
Wow, that's awesome. And so for me, like I work at Tennessee State University currently as the director of student activities and leadership. And so coming out of Lincoln University for my undergraduate experience, I went straight into the field. I studied my bachelor's degrees in sociology. And so I went into social work, and I was a caseworker for the city of New York. And I was a child protective specialist. And so I removed children who were at risk and who were in harm from their family, their birth parents, and placed them in foster care. So I did that for a year or so. While I was doing that, I was just so depressed and struggling, and I was like, I just don't like it. It was messing with me mentally because I would go home at night thinking about, oh my God, is this little kid okay? I just dropped them off at this house. I don't even know the people at the house. And so that was always constantly in my mind. And my parents would always see me wrestling, I guess, I was uncomfortable, throughout the day and the evening. And so talking to one of my mentors, Dr. Walton, one night, who was he was a professor at Lincoln when I was a student there, but he became the vice president of student affairs at Lincoln after I graduated. And so he one night just said to me, Tobias, you were so involved as a student. Why don't you just go into student affairs? And so I thought about it for a couple of months, and I just kept pushing it off. And then one day I just said, well, let me look into residence life, because I was an RA. That was one of the things that I did when I was a student. I was an RA. So I decided to apply for residence life. And that's how I got my foot in the door in higher education, and just kind of kept going from there and transitioned my way into student activities. So for you guys, if you can recall your first year as a student affairs professional, what did you anticipate your experience to be like? Describe like what the time that you made a mistake and you kind of thought back on it and reflected back on it and said, oh, this was a rookie mistake. Like, what was I thinking?
Mistakes? No, just kidding. Okay, so I'll go. So, kind of going with your story that you said with when you're a young professional coming in, and that's either young at age or young in the field. And I think the experience that I'm going to talk about right now is young in age and I guess professionalism. When I communicated on email, I was just a little bit too casual with my emailing. I wasn't as formal with, the greeting, the everything. Like when you get back when you go back and forth with people, I think you lose your context of how you're wording things. So it becomes more of a conversation, and it's not the typical email standard. So you're giving your greeting, it's just answering a question. Right. Yes, this is going to be here. Like, wait a minute. Yes, what's going to be here? Like, and then, not giving it anything, any closure or anything. So I think I may have been, and I think maybe my second year, called me out on it, and they were like, well, this is casual. They was like, hey, because I think I started the email off with hey, and they were like, that's very casual. Hey, who is this person emailing me talking something? Hey. And so I don't know if that was the Southern in me or just the immaturity in me to saying or the new that I just, because I think that was a little bit more personal for that person, that it made them feel like we were on a different level, and we weren't. We're on a professional level. You're a colleague, so give me a official greeting. And I think that was one of the ones that I first started off, and I was like, well, that I really got called out on. And I was like, good gosh, I didn't really mean it that way, but hello, great morning to you.
That question actually stumped me for a little while, and it took until Desmond was talking for me to actually think back to a specific example. And I don't know that it was necessarily a rookie mistake as much as it was having to adjust to working with students. Because as the work study lady, the questions were pretty much the same. They all came and asked all the same questions. So I remember I had all these signs on my door with the answers to all of the questions that everybody would come and ask. And I forgot all about that. But I wasn't as, and I'm still very stoic. Let's, because I'm cracking up, let's not, be fooled. But I just think there's a time and place for everything. But anyway, I wasn't as open as I am now in understanding that these are young people with questions. The flip side of that was I was 1 year, maybe a year to 3 older than the students who were coming to my office, because I had graduated in May and I came back to work in October. But I've always been maybe square is the word, square about the business. And I thought, well, I don't understand why you would have this question, because the information is out there. So why are you coming to ask me this? So I got tired of them all coming to asking, and I put the signs on the door, and that was not very inviting. So that was something that I had to learn. Yeah, they have questions. They're students. I have to answer them, and that's just the way it is. Everything that I think is a logical answer is not going to be a logical answer to them. Right. So I took the signs down, and I started to do better.
Our first year, I think, is the typical for student affairs professionals, I feel. When my first job was at Livingstone. I graduated in May, and the president of the college called me in July to tell me that the director of student activities had just quit, and he knew that I worked in the office. Would I mind coming to? And 23 years old, absolutely. I don't have a job, so yeah. So I go back to Livingstone as director of student activities at 23, making $18,500. Back then, to me, that was a lot of money. To me, back then, that was good. But I think the rookie mistake that I made, mind you, I had just graduated.
That was the rookie mistake.
So I would be hanging out with all my boys. I was hanging out with my frat brothers. I was on the plot. You know, I was planning all the parties. So of course, yeah, I'm gonna let y'all in the party. You know, so it took Dr. Rutherford to pull me in and literally curse me out to tell me that if you want to keep your job, this is what you're getting ready to do. You have to separate yourself. You're no longer a student. You know, although I had just pledged this line and I'm still, you know, I'm in that mode. And she was like, no, you are now in a position to where you are the authority. So these are no longer your friends while you're at work.
Right.
It took her to pull me in because I was going gung ho. Look, I'm director, come on to the apartment. We good, you know, but yeah. So that was my rookie mistake.
And my rookie mistake, I'll never forget, when I was at Syracuse University, one of my responsibilities was to plan the open house for the incoming graduate students. And we had these support groups for the incoming students. One was a group for students of color who were joining the department, and also one for LGBTQ plus students who were joining the department. And somehow when the work changed hands from the other worker to me, we had confirmed everything for the students of color group, which was mostly Black students. But we hadn't confirmed everything for the LGBTQ plus group. And as an administrator, one of the things I learned is confirmation in writing is key.
Yes.
Whatever is confirmed verbally does not necessarily mean anything. And unless it's in writing, it really doesn't matter. So it became actually an issue with students, the LGBTQ plus students who already felt silenced and erased, thinking that issues of race and racism are considered more important than issues of gender and sexuality. And I contributed to that by working with the students of color group and not them. So I definitely learned in that moment, like as an administrator, in my first year, I wasn't necessarily checking for email, but now I pay very close attention to it.
Awesome, awesome. Those were.
Can I double back because of what Orlando said? I probably made the biggest rookie mistake. Nobody told me the power of negotiation, right? And so the first time that I got my salary, I was so happy to get a job, a full-time job, my first full-time job, and with benefits, because I think I was like 23. I was off my parents' insurance. So, you know, you're in that time between, I'm going for undergrad and I only got a couple of more years on my insurance. I need a full-time job. And the HR director or person called me to offer me the job, and I took the first offer. I didn't know the power of negotiation. And I think it was like $21,000. And I was like, it was my first, I didn't know. And the HR person was trying to tell me, and I get it now. They were like, you sure you don't want to take some time to think about that? Because I didn't know that they know the salary range. Like every university doesn't post the salary range or whatever, but they know what budget they can go up to. So at that time, the process was, if I wanted to negotiate, I just tell them, and then they say, well, we'll take it back to the hiring manager and we'll let them know. Had no idea. I signed papers. I was ready to go. And I wish I would have. So to talk to somebody on here who is new or going into their first profession, I always tell my students, always remember the power of negotiation. Not be greedy, but know that there may be a salary range and know your worth. I know that I was new, but I know I had experience in the field, and 21 was the lower end of what they had to offer. I later found that out after I got the job. I think I probably could have went up to like 23. I think I accepted at 21. I think I could have did 23 or 24, but just not knowing that was kind of a rookie mistake.
On 18.
I want to touch real quick on when he said don't be greedy. Yes, don't be greedy, because people will, if you're too greedy or you do too much, people will can rescind an offer. So don't try to do too much.
And
know your worth, but don't try to do too much.
And that was a great point. And I think for a lot of times, for us as student affairs professionals, specifically like females, I think females have a harder time being able to negotiate salaries in our field. I would say, even, with me as a director, sometimes trying to advocate and fight for my staff, sometimes even the staff that I'm hiring coming in, I've noticed that it's harder for female staff to get a higher salary or to even negotiate a salary with HR or the hiring managers at various institutions. So I think that was a valid point that you made, Desmond. So moving forward, what are three lessons that you learned as a student affairs professional that you think our viewers should take heed to, that you kind of were not looking for, but it kind of happened one day and you were just like, wow, it's an aha moment for me, and it's something that I constantly think of while I'm doing the work that I do?
I'll go. I know two things that I can say. One thing is be passionate about your career, but don't take it home. And I know that's so hard for us to say, because when you're in student affairs and you're in student life, it's so easy to get ingrained in the day-to-day work that I was so passionate about it. When things don't go right, I carried that home. And it hurts because it's your passion. So when you're passionate about something and it doesn't go right, outsiders are like, wait, what you over here whining about? Something didn't go right today at work. Man, you got the fun job and you got students and you throw parties and concerts. Like, no, this is my profession. What are you talking about? I'm not even crying over a party. Like, whatever it is, so be passionate about it, but know how to just disconnect or disengage from your personal life. And if you want, a lot of people, there's a stigma that they put on student affairs that all student affairs people are single and we're not married, and I guess we can't get married or whatever. Like, I had a student come to me like, oh my God, Mr. Stowe, like, why is everybody in student affairs not married? And they just start running down the list of people that they know across the board in student affairs. You can get married and have kids if you want to in student affairs. You have to be intentional in doing it, and your spouse has to understand that they're marrying a student affairs professional, and there's a lot of time commitment, there's a lot of give. But I know student affairs professionals that are married and that have kids. You have to be intentional in doing it. So don't let that's one thing I learned. You have to be intentional about your own life, whether it's being passionate about your job and taking that home with you and disconnecting, or what you want out of your personal life. If you have goals and you're, dating somebody and don't let the job stop you from doing that. You just have to be intentional in doing that.
My three are choose your battles. That's my first one. Everything is not worth fighting about or voicing your opinion on. Yes. Sometimes it comes down to, do I want to say that maybe this is not a good idea, or that I don't agree with it, or do I want to think about the fact that I'm trying to be off in 2 weeks?
Right.
You have to choose. Everything is not about you always being right or you making a decision. Sometimes it's, you know what, gotta let that one rock out and just sit to the side and let people learn some things for themselves. You have to choose what you want to fight for, also what you're willing to fight for and what's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
My second one is you won't be successful if you're not student-centered. I don't really feel like I need to go on a whole tangent about that, but students first.
Yes.
And if it's not students first, you don't have any place here because it's called student affairs. And the third one is students are not your friends, no matter how cool they are or how close in age you are. At the end, you come into work. And so, you know, the student might have brought you a thank you gift because you signed a letter of recommendation for them. But that don't mean y'all going out. We're not going, no, why we're not going out? We're not friends. I'm pushing a certain age, and I guess my students think I'm cool enough that they want to go hang out. And I'm like, but why do you think that at my age, I want to hang out with you? We're not, you're still, honey, you're 19.
Right.
Friends, I put on these fun events and we have a good time, but when this is over, okay. All right, good night. We're not, they're not your friends. And on a serious note, because there are people who get caught up in that because of a lot of reasons. They're so young, or students are so cool, or they're so whatever it is. Yeah, you can't, don't let no students get you wrapped up in anything. And I'll leave that there.
And I think, can I just jump in? I think all of us are members of fraternities and sororities. And I know we sometimes advise them, and we sometimes see them in other spaces. You still have to understand your title. Yes. There's some things that you can do as a frat that you can't still do with the student, or with the sorority that you can't do with the student, even though they're your sorority sisters. They're your sorority undergraduate sister. They're your fraternity undergraduate brothers. And so that's another thing where, you know, I don't know if that's really not part of the question, but if you're having to be in a fraternity or sorority, understand the separation between that with students, because you're going to have to take them on road trips, or you may see them, if you're not their advisor, if you're active, hopefully you are, get active, side plug, get active to our organizations, be financial.
Side plug.
You're going to see them at a convention or a meeting, you know, even if they're there with their advisor who's not you, and they're going to see you in a space, and they need to know, you need to be, you know, you're still that person. Yes, you're human, but you don't need to be, you don't need to be sloppy drunk at a bar. Because you're at a hotel and you're at a fraternity meeting or fraternity cluster or a conclave or, you know, general meeting. You don't need to do that. You know, you still have to be a respectable person, and, you know, you shouldn't be really doing that stuff anyway, but definitely not out in public. And shout outs to Ziggy. Shout outs to Ziggy's frames. I'm not a frame type of person.
Oh my God.
When your frames popped up,
I'm
I was
Ziggy.
Like,
anybody who didn't know, I'm Ziggy.
Yep,
I'm Ziggy.
Sorry, Zan. When it popped up, I was like, look at those frames. Come on, frame. Side plug. Sorry, we're back on track.
Focus. No. Focus.
Student affairs, right?
First of all, 30 minutes later, I've been wearing these the whole time.
You have the mic. Hold on. Is this thing on? You have the mic.
Focus. I'm sorry, Dr. Morgan.
No, you're fine. This is what we do, right? So go ahead, Gaio or Orlando, whoever wants to jump in.
I do love Ziggy's point about choosing your battles. I love being right. Like, I do love being right. And I was born in Miami Taurus. We love being right, but you're right. Choosing your battles is important. I think that I'm also a creature of habit. So I love consistency. I can eat the same thing every day. But in student affairs, you can't necessarily hold on to what worked last year and the year before. And I think a lot of our institutions really hold on to tradition, and for good reason. But we also have to understand that the kinds of students who are coming to our institutions are changing.
Yes.
And the things that matter to them are changing as well, and we have to move with them. in order to be our best selves and in order to serve them, because as you mentioned, it is a student-centered field. And if we hold on to what used to work, then we're not servicing our students in the best way that we can. And one of the jokes I make is that my supervisor is not the director, my supervisor is the admin. Because I think the admin in the office often gets overlooked, but oftentimes if you're fortunate to have one, they can really be the glue.
That part.
So I really think that any department that does have one needs to show some more respect and love towards the admin, because if they do the purchasing and like the scheduling, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of work, but it can be a lot of work. And at least at Howard, a lot of those folks are like older women, and sometimes they need the big mama, big auntie type to because I'm not the most nurturing person in the world, so that person can really be that other support for them. Those are my two support.
My three is resiliency, patience, and flexibility, making sure that you're open to change. So those are my three.
Okay. And for me, I'll say one thing that I learned. I actually got this from Gael when I was working at Howard. And so I can recall whenever we would be in a meeting, or me and Gael would be doing one-on-ones, or just something would happen. She would always, she would just pause and reflect. And she would never just respond. It could even be where a student would come in office and ask a question, and I would always just watch her just sit there and just kind of reflect and digest what the student is saying or what I'm saying to her. And then sometimes she would even say, well, can I get back to you? Or, something like that. And so I took that. It took me a while to understand what she was doing. And so I took that from her, and it really worked, and it helps. It kind of allows you to process instead of just responding so quickly, and just really listening to what the other person is saying before you add your 2 cents in or give advice or directive. And so I really appreciated that from her, learning that from her. And I think that was a valuable lesson that I took, to really listen to what a member of my team may be saying to me, or what a student may be saying to me, so that I can better support them in whatever is going on at the moment. Another lesson that I learned over the years is, as a student affairs professional, we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day things that are going on in our offices, and then we may have an agenda for that day. We get to work in the morning, and we just have to throw that whole agenda out, and we have a whole new agenda that we did not plan on doing for that day. And so finding time to eat during the day, it's like, it's so hard for me.
Y'all eat?
During the summer. You mean
right?
Summer.
Like it's so hard.
Student affairs professionals are fasting people.
Fasting, like,
dang.
We fast more than
I used to drag you to leave your office to go eat something.
Gael would literally come to us and say, "Stop! Like, we're going to Starbucks. We're going and so it was so hard for me, because I was just caught up in the day-to-day movement of what was going on. So making sure that you eat something, even if your students just bring you something. Sometimes my students will go to the store and they'll call me or text me and say, hey, Mr. Morgan, you want something? And that's how I ate for the day, because one of my students thought about me. And so it's very key that we take time in the day for us to eat, because if we're not any good, then we're not gonna be able to do anything at our respective campuses, and they'll have a replacement for us tomorrow. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, in the midst of this. So so understanding all that is the HBCU culture, explain to us how you would manage a typical day in your office.
Actually, for me, you just touched on it. And as you were saying it, I was like, man, that's my answer. There is no such thing as a typical day. A typical day is understanding that yesterday is going to be different than today, is going to be different than tomorrow. You may have an agenda, but a student comes in and they need something resolved, whether it's personal or professional. I can tell you how many times a student has just come in my office and just sat down and it was, well, I guess it's time for a counseling session. And I got to close my door, and whatever you have that you need to lay out and you need somebody to talk to, this is the time for that. It doesn't matter if there's an agenda. I have to figure out how to manage my time so that I can accommodate whatever that student needs in that moment that was not on my original agenda for the day. That's what a typical day is, making space for the unexpected.
That's good.
That's what my mentor, her thing was always, as a student affairs professional, you come to work as a blank piece of paper. every single day. You come to work as a blank piece of paper. And
That's good.
And if you're not student-centered enough, you would not understand what that means. So, because a lot of people come in with agendas. A lot of our supervisors come in with agendas. Yeah. This is what I need done today. And you understanding your role as a student affairs professional, I'm coming to work as a blank piece of paper. Because my day, everything I had planned, I could spend hours planning a planner all day long. But it takes one student to come in with a crisis, and my whole day is gone.
Done.
So there's no need to get upset about it. If you come to work every day as a blank piece of paper, maybe you get your work done, maybe you won't. But there were no expectations.
Right. Okay.
So I'm trying to dissect the first part of the question, which is about the HBCU culture. And every time I kind of get a question like that and I put myself in it, to me, it's not really the HBCU culture. It's just being student-centered. And that's what the HBC culture is being student-centered and student-focused. Like, me being student-centered is, if I hear the marching band, going outside and cheering my students on. If they're marching in practice, I'm going to go outside and stop what I do and be like, oh yeah, let me just go outside and just, because I know they're marching to practice. But if I was at a PWI, I feel like I would go outside if I see the band too. So it's not like, other PWIs don't have a band, or, I can't, I may go talk to a student. I'm going to talk to a student because I'm student-centered, like Orlando said. That's a part of the culture. I think maybe at a HBCU, there's a lot more nurturing of that, maybe, is what you can say. Some people call it coddling. Let's just really put it out there. Some people think, it's coddling and it's or babying people. No, I'm going to get on you when I need to get on you. If you need to get over this and give yourself an, if you got an F on the paper, let's understand why you got this F on the paper. I'm not going to call you because you made this bad grade, and I know you in all these social activities and you're doing this, and I saw you in the band and I saw you in the fashion show. Yeah, I'm going to tell you about that. I'm not going to just be like, oh, it's going to be okay. Professor shouldn't have gave you. No, why did you earn this F? You just earned this F, and we're going to discuss and dissect why you earned the F. And so I don't really see that as the only the HBCU culture. I think maybe it's expected a lot at an HBCU culture for people to care and for people to be student-centered. Everybody at HBCU is not student-centered, and so I don't want people to get the misconception that if I work or if I go to HBCU, everybody's going to love me, everybody's going to look out for me, everybody's going to nurture me. No, there's some people with other agendas out there, and like the same way, there's some people at PWIs who are going to love and nurture you because that's who they are. They're a lover, they're nurture, and they have a passion for the field. I think it's just the expectation at an HBCU that everybody's family and everybody gets along. We're in the real world. It doesn't happen that way.
Right.
I do want to address what you said earlier, Dr. T, about making time to eat. And I was thinking about like student affairs culture and how all the colleagues I know are all overwhelmed and overworked. And if I've learned anything in the pandemic, it's that's not anything to strive for. And it's almost like folks wear it as like a badge of honor that we overwhelm ourselves. But not having lunch is not okay. And I never want to create an environment, or like not taking time is not okay. And I want to ensure that I create an environment in which that we take care of each other. And even in this pandemic, I can still be productive and I can still accomplish tasks and projects without necessarily being interrupted every couple minutes. But I definitely think that's a part of student affairs culture, and we have an obligation to change that and make every effort to take care of ourselves in supporting our students.
Awesome. And so I just want to jump away from the questions that I have. I do have one question that popped up on the feed from Dr. Royal. And so Dr. Royal has asked, can you share with us who was your best supervisor and how important that has been to your career?
I'm sorry I laughed because I don't know where Desmond went, but she was Dr. Royal was one of both of our supervisors. So it was almost as though she came in for us to say,
wow,
it was
really?
her.
Wow, really? Really? So as a new professional, just never say anything. My God. Ziggy, I'll defer to my elder on that one.
I don't think I had, who, child, I have had,
Right. Me too.
So have I.
No, to be honest, no. That as I look back across the 18 years, and this is not a plug because she asked the question, but I would say that there were two, and it was Dr. Royal and Dr. Walton. And I would say, well, she was Miss Royal at the time, but she was also Miss Royal when I was a student. So I'm still working on the Dr. Royal part. And as a grown adult, I'm still working on not calling her Miss Royal. But one of the things that I got, or that I learned with Miss Royal, was to open my mouth, because I was very much I won't say anything, but I feel a way about something. And if I feel a way, you can tell that I feel the way, but I'm just not going to say nothing. And I remember, I think I had an evaluation one time, and I mean, I can talk about this specific example because a specific person asked. But I remember there was one evaluation that I had, and I didn't agree with something. And instead of in conversation, when we had the evaluation, saying how I felt in that moment, I wrote it back instead. And as I look back, I know that was, well, she ended up coming to me and be like, wait, so this is how you felt? Like, why didn't you say something? And from that moment, I learned, yeah, closed mouths don't get fed. And so I don't remember what it was, but it not necessarily being something that could be resolved. It might not have been able to be changed, but at least me saying something would have gotten it off my chest and let it be known. That wasn't the question. The question was best supervisor. So I'll say Dr. Royal and Dr. Walton.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it there. Sorry, I felt my tangent coming or happening.
Yep, I like my supervisors.
What about?
No, I would say, because so let me say this. One thing that Dr. Royal, Miss Royal, Janine, all of that, she was an amazing supervisor. One thing I do want to let the new professionals or somebody who's looking at this is, I had to she was Miss Royal when she was with us, and she left to become Dr. Royal. So she went full time to get her PhD. So I was celebrating her and mourning at the same time. Like, I was only there.
It was your first year.
8 months before she was like, well, I'm leaving. And I was like, oh my God, what? I had this perfect, family at work that I didn't understand. That was a new part of me being a new staff member, is understanding group dynamics. I like this group dynamic, and I took the job because of the group dynamics, and they picked me because of the group dynamics. And when I got into it, I was like, yes, we finally got it. And then to be like, oh, wait a minute, you're leaving? Like, you're my supervisor. You're the head of my group dynamic. Like, this is about to change, and I can't leave because you're leaving. You're leaving to become great, and I'm happy for you. Like, I was stupid happy, like crazy, running around in the mud, literally happy for her.
We mourned. We wore all black that last day.
It was bad because I was like, now my group dynamic is changing. And as a professional, you have to understand, you can't take a job for a great supervisor. You can't, because they're either going to get promoted or leave, and that's good. You want promotion, but don't take it, because your group dynamic is going to change when that great supervisor becomes something else and you move up to be a supervisor or whatever. So, Janine, you're the best. We still miss you.
Those were good times.
Oh.
Those were good times.
Good times.
Orlando or Gael, y'all want to jump in?
I'm good.
I had two great. That's funny. I had two great supervisors as well. One, his name is Dr. Timothy Eatman. He's actually a Howard alum. And he was my supervisor while I was a doctoral student at Syracuse University. I still am, but I was a research assistant with him. And he was, at the time, one of the faculty co-directors of a consortium of colleges and universities that really focused on arts, the arts as scholarship. And I think that's so important for our students, at least in higher ed period, because I think there's like a hierarchy of disciplines. And the arts sometimes isn't necessarily looked at as like the most academic, but the work that he does actually respects art as academic. And it just really changed my mind about and really opened me up to different fields of higher ed. My other great supervisor was Dr. T. Dr. Tobias Morgan taught me everything I know about Howard, and we really learned by fire. And he wasn't supposed to be my supervisor, but as Desmond alluded to, like when folks leave, you have to be able to roll with the punches. And he supervised me, had to lead the office, and it was just two of us working in student life and activities for some time, and it was really tough, but because of him, I was able to get through it. And then when he left, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't, but he prepared me to take the next level in my job, and I wouldn't be here without you, Dr. T. So you really were my favorite, best supervisor.
Dr. Morgan, I will say, for the benefit of those people who may be watching who are newly professionals in student affairs or thinking about student affairs, I learned the most about myself and about being in student affairs from my worst supervisors. So it didn't have anything to do with how good my supervisors were.
That's good, yeah.
It was the ones that were absolutely horrible, horrible supervisors who were not student-centered and clearly was chasing after a title and a check. I learned my greatest lessons from those individuals that taught me a lot about myself and pushed me to do even more for my students, because I was the only thing that they had.
Wow. And wow, that was a good one.
That is a good one.
That was a good one. For me, I would say, so my best supervisor was actually, when I started working at Howard University, my director, her name was Lennon Jackson. She was the director of student activities and leadership. So my first year, she was the director, and the second year, she became the dean of student activities and leadership. And so she really gave me my foundation in student activities, because prior to that, I was, in residence life. And so I transitioned into student activities, and she really poured into me so much knowledge. She really amplified my knowledge on fraternity sorority life. That was my first position at Howard, working in the coordinator of fraternity sorority life before I became assistant director and moved up. But she really poured into me so much. I remember one day she told me, she gave me, I have the flash drive right here still to this day. She took it out of her computer and she gave it to me, and she said, anything you have on your desktop, put it on this external drive today. And she was like, always make sure you back up your files and BCC your personal email whenever you send the email. And so I remembered that over the years, and just watching her move and how she kind of played the game and things like the politics game at Howard. And so that has always just resonated with me. And I think that prepared me to be the director that I am today. So I really do give her all of the respect for really teaching me everything that I know in student affairs today. And so moving on, so each year, we get a new class of first year students with a unique personality. Each class comes in with their own personality. And so what are some strategies that you guys have adopted to stay ahead of the curve in student affairs to keep students engaged?
Tapping into resources. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
I lean on my students, my student workers, my student leaders. I lean on them to lead the conversation. It can't always be, I may be out of touch. So I need to make sure that what I'm saying will be translated appropriately to them. So I go through my student leaders.
Okay.
So yes, for me, that too, listening to students and asking students, but also tapping into the resources at other institutions. I know that I am not the only director of student activities at the only school that exists. So
Right.
there are other people who are doing the things that I am doing or trying to do and have the answers to questions that I may not have the answer to. So I definitely tap into my network and say, hey, what y'all doing about this? How are y'all handling this? What are ideas that y'all have for this? The wheel, I've always been confused. Is it the wheel or the will? Whichever one of those doesn't have to be reinvented all the time. Ask somebody else. And I'll give you one example. There was a time I was working on the Constitution for SGA some years ago. And I reached out to Orlando, I remember, and I think Jimmy from UMES, and I was like, we're not about to create no brand new Constitution. We're going to take pieces from here and take pieces from there, and we'll make it fit what we need to make it fit and go from there. So tapping into the resources and students.
Right. And so I want to jump into another question really quickly. So Desmond, Isan, and Orlando, you each served as campus kings and queens while you were in undergrad, and so at your HBCUs. How did your role as Mr. and Miss at your respective institutions prepare you to be successful as a student affairs professional today?
I'll go. So, as Mr. Bear is what we were called. We wasn't Mr. Livingstone. But as Mr. Bear, that was a difficult time for me because, mind you, there was an institution that had never had a Mr. to represent the institution. It was always a Miss. It was always the queen. So, me trying to find my space in that space was difficult. Trying to find an appropriate advisor to advise me, just like, others were being advised, was difficult as well. But what it taught me, I wouldn't change the experience. One, love my alma mater, loved it, loved the position. And at the time we had more males on campus than females. So it did give me a platform of where, I could service the guys that were on campus. But what it taught me was how to be an appropriate advisor to my groups. It taught me that, because I did not have that, I know what I need to do as an effective advisor, just not an advisor. Because anybody can advise, but everybody can't be an effective advisor. So I knew what I was missing as an advisee. So I made it a pact that I pattern what I do for my students that I advise. I pattern and I always go back to that moment. But I don't want to make them feel like I felt. So I'm always putting myself in their shoes and making sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do to be an effective advisor. So that's how it molded me into what I'm doing.
Okay.
For me, this reminds me of when I talk to advisors and when I have advisors training, being that I was in a position that our students are in, I have to tell our advisors, it's not your organization, it's the student organization. So although I was a king, I'm not the king here. And so I can't, what I like, the king may not like. And so I have to, it's prepared me to be a good advisor because some advisors, because I go back to fraternities. Yes, you're in the fraternity, but this is my chapter. This is the undergraduate chapter. I'm in an alumni chapter. If I want to run the chapter, that's the chapter I need to run for office for. And so I take that kind of sentiments with the Mr. At a school I worked at, they had a Mr. and it was flourishing. Then I went to another school and they didn't have a Mr. and they wanted one. I had to know the dynamics between how to get one, how to get what the students wanted, and then alumni didn't want it. Some faculty and staff didn't want it. And so being the Mr., I was put in those shoes. I understood the adversity that I had being that, and I was a Mr. Aggie, so it wasn't Mr. A&T then, and it wasn't on the ballot for SGA. He wasn't an SGA. I was a part of Campus Activities Board, so I know the evolution of Mr., and that helped me understand where Misters are now, and with the Queen, what it is to have a queen and a Mr. Because my queen wasn't used to a Mr. Escort. She walked with her court by herself. And so knowing that dynamics, I talked to her, and then I was able to transfer that same skill set when my school here got a mister. It was new for the queen and for the king because they can't travel the same places because now you're adding, 5 more people on the court. Now you're dressing 5 more people on the court. So that goes with budget, that goes with office space, a lot of that stuff. So it helped me in the fact that I was able to see the evolution of what it was and know that that's not me. I may like a suit and the king may not like that. Like I didn't wear skinny leg suits when I was Mr. Aggie. We had skinny leg suits. If it was because I was poor and I didn't have too tight, I was gaining the freshman 15. But it was because of, and I have to realize with the times that, it still needs to look professional, but I'm not the king anymore. That's not my position. I've advised you on what to do, but you are the current. So it did help me, or it has helped me.
I would say one of the greatest things that I learned that I was able to transfer into my professional life is working around failures. As Miss Lincoln, there were things that I wanted to happen. There were programs that I wanted to occur. And for one reason or another, there were several things that didn't work out. Whether it was the time that I wanted to have the faculty come to sit on the panel for something, and one person out of everybody that I invited responded to, I wanted to have something going on for finals, and people didn't show up. I learned to work around and figure out other ways to engage. When the things that I had planned didn't work out, you know what? Let me think about something else. You know what? I could do this ice cream social in the cafeteria, and I know that if I'm in the caf where the people are, they're going to come to that, and that's me helping to give something back because I'm doing it with a company that students can also get hired by. So it helped me navigate failure. Because things don't always work out. And so even as a student affairs professional, stuff don't work sometimes.
Right.
Last minute, we got a budget cut. Well, wait a minute. I was planning to use that money for such and such and such, and I held it because I was planning to use it for such and such. And here you go needing to fill a hole somewhere, and you taking my money. You know what? I got to figure out another way to make it happen because I still need to make this happen. So and maybe failure is not the word that I should have used because maybe they're not failures, but to work around challenges.
Yeah.
It definitely taught me how to work around challenges and things not going the way that you plan for them to go.
Right. So true.
Because I'm very much a planner and it still gets under my skin, but I have gotten better.
And so segueing a little bit over to Gael. So you have a different story from undergrad, being that you attended Temple University, which is a PWI. And so I know a lot of people who want to work in student affairs at an HBCU. And so sometimes that discourages them from working at an HBCU because they attended a PWI. And so they may assume that the dynamics may be different. So can you share what your experience was transitioning from the PWI type of institution to a HBCU institution, specifically within student affairs, student activities?
And can I add the pressure and working at one with such rich heritage, history and culture, like how would the Mecca out of all of them, just to add a little bit more pressure, sorry.
Right.
The first thing is that my time at Howard has been the most enlightening, empowering, challenging time of my life. I have been stretched in ways that I have never been stretched before. All good though. The person that I am today, the professional I am today is not who I started off as at all. And I think for anyone interested in working at a historically Black college, you have to understand the nuances of supporting a Black student population. At Temple, we were just trying to get them to say Black Lives Matter. Now we're talking about Black lesbian lives matter, Black transgender lives matter, Black Muslim lives, and all the different identities that our students have. And we just have to move forward and past the racial support. And the other thing I had to learn at Howard is like the dynamics. So I think another question you had, Tobias, was about like policies and politics at our institutions. I had to learn about the unwritten rules. So there's like policies and things and systems that we have, but there's things that are not written and like rhythms you have to find to be able to be successful that I didn't necessarily experience in my prior institution. But I definitely think someone talked about flexibility and learning. So I had to spend time learning and not thinking that I knew what was going to be best for this institution that I'm new to. And I think the last thing is navigating what I'm borrowing from Patricia Hills Collins, this outsider within status that I've had. Because at my institution, there is a large alumni base who works there. And these are folks who had a specific experience and they want their kids to come stay in quad. You're coming to Howard to stay in quad and you need to join this organization. Those are the kind of students that I have to work with. They're coming, Mrs. Ivory, I have to join AKA. I have to join AKA. My mom says I have to join AKA. And so there is a number of things happening in terms of advising. I want to support that, right? Of course, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I want all the students to join AKA, right? At the same time, I want them to be able to make decisions for themselves. It's what you're in college for. You're in college to learn how to think on your own and decide what you believe as opposed to what your parents believe. Mm-hmm. But back to the original point, it has been the most enlightening, empowering, and despite everything that's happened, despite losing you, Dr. T, I couldn't imagine working anywhere else.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. And so, segueing back, you did mention, as we kind of come down and wrap up a little bit, we have about 2 more questions. So you talked about the politics at a HBCU. So can you guys just kind of briefly touch on how would you help someone to navigate some of those unwritten rules and the politics at a HBCU to be successful?
As a new person, observe. Don't come in thinking, it's okay to have ideas when you come in, but as the new kid on the block, you need to know how the block runs before you come in and talk about this is how the block is about to run when I get here. So I think, and this is one of the most important things to me, to observe, ask questions, go to different events and different programs that other people are having so you can understand and learn the culture of the institution that you're at. If you're coming from another institution, it's not going to be the same as it was at the last place, because this is a different set of students in a different location with a different set of staff. Everything is different. What works for the goose don't always work for the gander. Sometimes yes, but just because maybe you worked at an HBCU, you're coming to another one. Yeah, this one different. This one's very different than that one was. Right. So observe and ask questions, and also know when to not ask questions. Pay attention to the room. Whatever that room is. Pay attention to the room. Pay attention to the room.
That's the student's favorite thing now. Read the room.
Read the room. I have had to, I'm very inquisitive when I don't know and when I'm trying to learn. And that was one of the things that I had to learn when I made my transition from Lincoln to Coppin. I was asking a lot of questions around my director's table, and I would feel some looks, and I was like, well, I'm asking because I don't know, or right. I'm trying to offer something. And after a while I learned I will ask you questions when they need to be asked, and outside of that, I might wait and ask my question on the side. Or maybe not at all, and I'll just do what I need to do. So read the room. Right. Every room is a library. Get your book and read it.
Mm-hmm. That was good.
Get to know the campus. Develop you some campus partners. Even though we're in student affairs, go over to academic affairs. Find you some partners in academic affairs and see how you can assist them in what they're doing, and combine the two. You know, we're one campus. A lot of times you go onto a campus and it's them against us, and it should not be that way if we're talking about a holistic student. You can't develop a holistic student if you're on a campus where it's two parts of us. It's only one part. So find you some campus partners, create this cohort of individuals in academics and facilities and athletics, and just go across the campus and develop you a nucleus that you can always lean on and help support you, especially because you're new. And the most important thing for any new person coming on, your strategic plan is your campus Bible. If you know the institution's strategic plan, that takes care of all your planning, that takes care of a lot of the no, we can't do that. Well, I mean, it's in the strategic plan, so I'm just trying to go by what the strategic plan says, because this is what we told the state that we were going to be doing. So these are some of the things that I want to do based upon my strategic. Know that strategic plan from the opening credits to the end credits. You need to know that. That helps you with knowing the campus as well.
Right.
Because it's not going to be the campus that you came from.
True.
I'll say be you. Find out for yourself. Don't get caught up into what everybody's going to tell you, because people are going to tell you, oh, we did that before. Oh, that never works. Oh, you're never going to get anything fixed.
Right.
Oh, you can complain if you want to, but that person is this. Oh, and those are the mean people, and those are the good people. Don't get caught up in the mean girl aspect of what, like, this is not high school, but it happens in professional careers when people will label you, that know that people will label you for who you hang around. You know, people believe in birds of a feather flock together. They'll believe whatever staff you come into, they feel like you're going to be that person. If that's not you, be the person on your staff that people can talk to, or be the, like Orlando said, that people do reach out to. So you have to authentically be you and operate in who that is, and don't believe in what everybody says. Even if it's your team or your supervisor, you got to find out for yourself who is that, because like we said earlier, supervisors leave, team members leave, they come and they go. You have to make a name for yourself where you are. Absolutely. And this is one of the last points I'll make to this. Word travels fast in life, but faster in student activities and student life and student activities. And
it sure
faster,
does.
faster if we're talking about HBCUs.
Yes, who said cheers? Cheers to that. I toast to that.
I know.
It travels fast. Yes, so whoever you are, and that's going to travel. You know, whatever you do, that's going to travel. If you rub feathers wrong, that's going to travel. And that's going to travel. And you're good or bad. So when you're looking for promotions, or looking to move schools, or looking to go to graduate school, and you're looking for recommendations, people are going to reach out to who they know at that institution. And that's what it is. They're not going to look at your best resume and who you put on there. So you can put your supervisor or not. People reach out to who they know and who they want to reach out to. And key, this is the last point, not just professionals, students too. I've gotten a lot of jobs and students were the reference. Like, you're asking a student about me? And if I say I'm student friendly and student centered and student focused, why shouldn't I ask a student?
Right.
And students across the board talk to each other. I said last plug, but this is my last plug.
It's never right.
I'm a part of NASAP. I'm a part of the National Association of Student Affairs Professionals, and I'm on the board. So if you're not a member, join us. It's on nasap.net. You can go to that.
They're gonna plug.
Low plug, good plug.
We can drop it in the comments. We'll drop it in the comments.
Please drop that.
Yeah.
Because but the Student Leadership Institute, where all of our student leaders get together and they talk and they keep connected with each other. And so if I go to another institution, they're going to go in the chat and be like, oh, we got this guy from Savannah State who said he worked at Lincoln, who said he was an Aggie. They're reaching out to every one of those people and saying, who is this guy? He said he was a mister. He said he did this. He in a fraternity. They're reaching out to the fraternity bond, whoever they know. So know that that can work for you, or that can work against you.
Or that can work against you.
Yes.
In a social atmosphere. So people will remember you from that fraternity meeting, or that fraternity when you was, you in the wrong setting at the wrong time. People will remember you for being there. And if you're in the wrong place, it could hurt you professionally.
Right. Very much.
Folks are paying attention when you don't know they're paying attention. And folks know you who you don't know. When I got to Coppin, there were students who knew me. They knew me from NASAP. I don't know who there was 400 students. I don't remember y'all three, but they knew who I was.
Right.
So that's how other students learned who I was. That's the lady who was the NASAP, but she said this and this and this. And the word traveled. Thank good it was good words. Thank goodness it was good words. Because look, the SGA president was on the committee, was on the hiring committee. He had been at NASAP, Had I cut my behind at NASEP, it would have been, yeah, not her. It was the one. Yeah. Students will work for you or they will work against you.
Right. And so we have a question from Malachi. Malachi asked, what has been your most challenging thing working with students? And he said it's for everyone.
Do we know Malachi? You said Malachi like he was all our students.
I don't know. Malachi, he's one of y'all students.
He's one of y'all students.
Malachi Stewart.
What did Malachi
He's
ask?
one of y'all students.
What did Malachi ask?
What has been your most challenging thing working with students?
Oh, boy.
My most challenging thing working with students is working with, and I'm generalizing because I don't want to pick no generalizing, is dealing with a student that knows everything. It's their first time in the position, but they know all about the position, and they know everything. And trying to get them to see that you think you know, you probably read about it, but you have never been in the position. So learn the position first, and then, so that, for me, everything else comes easy, but that was probably one of my challenging moments, just dealing with a student who knows more than what you do about something that they've never done before.
I would say the most challenging for me is knowing that students need something and not being able to provide it. And not because you don't want to, but because somebody above you has said no to it. And they're not budging on that. And you have worked and you have saved and you have put aside so that your students could have X, Y, Z, and then having to come to them and tell them, you can't because X, Y, Z. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be extremely vague.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that is a difficult situation.
I made it possible for this to happen, and now it can't. And it's not my fault, but I still got to tell you, and I still got to work with you, and I still have to help you through understanding this is not happening, and this is why. And I can't always give you the answer of why not, because I can't tell you so-and-so said, and they don't think you should.
Right.
For me, I have to claim Malachi. Malachi is the fifth.
I pointed at you.
Yeah.
Right.
He's one of your students.
University.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Malachi. Hello. Hello, King. Thanks for joining in. I would say dealing with outside voices of students, like students that I advise, and I know as an advisor, I have to deal with that, but that's challenging for me. And I know I have to deal with all of the outside voices that they have in their head. And that's if it's a Mr. or a Miss, a fraternity. I am one of the advisors for Kappa Alpha Psi. And when I know they have that voice of alumni members in their head, and I know they have that voice of other frat brothers in their head and what the yard is doing, like it's challenging for me to help and advise a student when they have all these other voices. And a part of our conversation is, I know you have all those voices in your head. I'm not going to compete against them. I'm going to advise you. And when I hear that voice come up, I'm going to call that voice what it is, because I know that voice is not you. Like I can tell when a voice is not a student and they're being told from the outside in. And so that's a challenging part with advising students. It's just that you got to know you're not only their only advisor. They got a mentor, they got a mama, daddy, a parent who thinks they know better, what dress they should wear, what suit looks better, what fraternity brothers, who should be in, who should be not, who should get the vote, who shouldn't. All of that stuff. We should have a grill at 5 o'clock, or we should have a cookout at 2. Like I can't compete against all those voices. And I have to let you know that I'm not going to work against you, because you do have to know that some people at the university do have power to help you. But if you're listening to some of those outside voices, then you're going to block off some of that, because they're going to also tell you some things that, oh, I feel like Mr. Stowe, he just think he the king, and he wants you to do this just because of him. He wants this. That's not it. I'm advising you because I've been in the position before, and I'm open, and I kind of know who you are as a person. And I'm not just thinking about your chapter, or I'm just not thinking about your organization. I'm thinking about you as a student in the totality of what you're trying to do.
Right.
I think for me, one of my challenges is when student organizations are focused on the title and not necessarily the work that's required behind the title. So for me, if you're a president, you're there first and you leave last. And I think the higher up you are, that's as much humility as you have to have. And I think there's like this entitlement that comes with those positions. And while wonderful, yes, you work for that. Yes, you deserve all of the wonderful things that come with being a president or a vice president. But it also comes with an understanding of everybody in the organization, understanding everybody's position, and always trying to push the needle and make it better and not trying to repeat what was done before. So I think the second part of that is, I find that student organizations like to do the same thing. It seems like, and that's great, but.
Another movie night?
You're not even a fashion troupe. What are you doing?
Oh, God.
And those things are great. It shows tradition and an honoring of tradition, but there are even greater things that you can do. And they're so smart too. They're brilliant. Y'all can come up with an even better and one up the group from last year.
Right.
And that could be associated with what Desmond talked about with the outside voices. But yeah, that's the title part is definitely a challenge.
Okay. So as we wrap up, so our last question for our guests on this evening would be, what would you tell your younger self entering into the journey of student affairs? So what would you tell your younger self, that person coming in day one, and what would you go back and tell you?
I would tell myself two things. The first is, I got my notes over here, so I'm looking over there. The first is that I'm an introvert, and that's okay, because a lot of people in higher ed are not introverts, but there are students who will resonate with that. And I'm still learning how to navigate the large crowds and lots of people, but this is a field of people and understanding people. So find your power in that is what I would say to myself. The other thing I would say to myself is that you're going to rub people the wrong way with the work that you chose to do. I talked about my work being in inclusion. It rubs people the wrong way. And again, there's challenges in that, but there's also power in that. So I had to, find my voice, find my strength to be able to do that work, because what's not important is my ego and my feelings. The point is the student and their needs, and ensuring that I'm creating an environment in which they feel safe. So
right. Awesome.
I think something that I've started living by probably within the last year is I don't have to, I get to. And so I think with that, a lot of times people put it as a burden, like, oh my God, I have to do this, I have to. And when you change your mindset of I have to to I get to, then it's just a different mindset shift that you have. And so if you saying, oh my God, I have to do 12 programs, and I get to do 12 programs today. Like I get to, I think we all look at it as today's a long day. Oh my God, I'm gonna have a long day. You knew when you enter student affairs, you were going to have some long days. I get to have a long day that I enjoy. Now, if you don't like student affairs, don't do it. Like,
right.
If you don't want to have long days, but I get to have a day where, and I'll give an example. I don't like to use too many personal examples, but my birthday is in August. It always falls during the week of welcome and freshman transition week. I've since I've been in higher ed, have always celebrated my birthday with the freshman class of 2007, 08, 16, 24. I've always celebrated. Like last year, we had a silent party, but it was amazing. Like if I put it on my Instagram, and I was like, yeah, I'm having a party with 1,000 new freshmen who are excited to be at college for the first time, who are having amazing times. Like, we had a phone party. Like, who throws a phone party for their birthday? Like, it's for the freshmen, but
it's for me too.
I'm gonna have a good time. Like, I'm gonna
My party,
DJ.
y'all can come though.
I'm gonna have a good DJ, and it's gonna be some good music. And if I want a theme, then let's theme this party out because it's my birthday.
You ain't have 800 people at your party.
Right. I have to be here for 14 hours and then do a party at night. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time today.
Right.
But you know, it's not the mindset of, oh my God, I have to be at work on my birthday and I have to throw them a party. No, I get to be at work and I get to throw a party and I get to, and then when I'm off, I get to be off. So it's not always I get to work, but when I'm off, I get to be off. And so be off, and that's the disconnect. I do think you need to have a work-life balance. When you're off, be off. And it's hard because I went all the way to Puerto Rico. Costa Rica. I went all the way to Costa Rica and was on like some dune buggies or something. And I was like, oh my God, my students would love this. No, you're on vacation. I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. My students will love this. We should do this. What? You're in Costa Rica thinking about your students? Would you just have fun? But so that's the part that you just, you never can get. But I live, and I think I would have told myself, I think I would have had a lot more fun, even though I had fun. If I live by the motto, I get to, not I have to.
Right. Awesome.
I have two. So our first one is don't allow anybody to make you question your self-worth. Because I know sometimes in student affairs arena, we have a lot of people that are chasing titles.
Yeah.
And for here recently, being a campus president, being a chancellor or president or vice chancellor of student affairs is attractive, but you forget the steps that you have to take to get there, and you tend to diminish other people's light because you feel like they are a block, or you're intimidated by that light of those others. So I would tell my younger self, don't allow anybody to diminish your self-worth. And the other thing is, I can't be anything to anybody if I'm not everything to myself.
That was good. That's it.
I would tell my younger self coming into student affairs, don't be scared, you were built for this. I think there have been a lot of things that I have been concerned about and worried about. There was a time, I don't know if,
It's okay.
had an opportunity to be director sooner than I was, I'll say that, at Lincoln. And I didn't take the opportunity because I was scared and I didn't think I was ready. And I feel like looking back, I don't know that I would change that because, everything leads to where you are now in this moment. But I would tell my younger self, don't be scared, you were built for this. I was a very involved student. In my mind as a student, I was never going into student affairs. That was not the plan. But I was an RA, I was Miss Lincoln, I was a student leader, I was on the class board. There were so many things that I was involved in that now we flip the script and I'm advising these students, or I'm dealing with these students who are all of those things that I was. And had I not had the experience that I had, I wouldn't be able to be as successful in helping them along their journey. And so that means that I was being prepared even before I knew that I was being prepared. So again, don't be scared. You are built for this.
Awesome, awesome. And so as we wrap up tonight, I hope that everyone who tuned in was able to take away some of these nuggets that our four panelists have shared with us on tonight. It was some very strong points that are useful. Some of the points that were made on tonight, I wish I would have known coming into the field. And even as some of us that have been in the field for a few years now, some of these points that were brought up tonight are still useful, especially with planning and not invalidating yourself, showing up, reading a room, and just knowing how to accept yourself first while you're doing the work, because I think that's a very important aspect of the work that we do, because if we don't accept ourselves, how do we expect our students to show up as their authentic selves as well? So I really hope that you guys took something away from this. And I thank you to each of my panelists. I love you guys, and thank you for pouring into me and pouring into our viewers on tonight. So everyone have a great evening. And
Hold on, we gotta thank Tobias. Let's thank Dr.
Let's
Morgan.
thank Dr. Morgan.
Thanks for
Yes,
having
Dr.
us.
Morgan.
you guys are so welcome.
We appreciate you,
Yes.
That
Dr.
was so
Morgan.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. And stay tuned for our next show in the next week. Have a great evening. And remember, get out there and vote. Have a good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Wait, are
gonna
we
stop
leaving?
the recording.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he's just taking us. Dang, Orlando. Oh my God.
Is it still live?
Yeah, I see.
Wait, we're still live?
I still
Yeah.
recording. Yeah.
Tobias, are we still live?
Yes, we are. We are.
Okay,
We are. We're still live and we're recording. We're waiting on Orlando.
I'm glad I asked.
we're still live. Just smile.
Yeah, we're live, Orlando.
Oh,
We're thanking Tobias. We're just thanking Tobias for a good time.
nice.
It's off the live, guys.
You were king of class of 07? Is that what it was? Were you king? You were on 07's board that one year that I was y'all's advisor that one year because y'all originally had, what was AJ from student development and whatever that was called. I think he was the class advisor, and then he was gone. And then that's how I became class of 07's advisor.
Yeah,
And you were king?
Yeah, I was king, yeah.
Yes, okay. I thought so.
Yeah.
Mine still say recording, Tobias.
It sure does.
Mine
Does
too.
it? It doesn't on mine. Let's see.
It's on purpose. Tobias trying to catch us.
Yeah, trying to get us.
There's no, you can't catch no folks in nothing they not in.
Can't get your slick.
No, his Zoom is recording. It's not recording. It's not on live. Yeah, it's not live.
Oh yeah, I think it stopped.
Oh
at
shoot,
5.
no, that's me playing. Sorry. I was like, what is that? No, stop. How do I make it stop?
That's you.
Make it stop.
I think
Okay.
yeah, I looked back at it on your page and I think it stopped at us saying goodbye.
Yeah, it's just a lot of Zoom. I just got to shut it off for it to end.
Okay, gotcha. Well, good job. I don't know
Yes,
how
this was great.
long how long are your usual sessions?
1 hour.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It was good. It was good.
I was fine.
You
I
chose
kept
the
saying-
long-winded. You put all the long-winded people on the same night.
Understand? Yeah, you should split us up.
Desmond brought his microphone out.
Right.
I didn't bring mine. Mine is over there. I didn't bring mine out.
And backdrop. I got backdrop.